with opening prayer. And I've been reading and actually working through this book, Release and Renew for 2022. It's really been very helpful. And so if you center yourselves, I'm going to just read a little short story from this book. And it's called Carrying the Christ. Jesus asks his disciples to find a donkey and her colt. And Jesus rides into Jerusalem on a colt when he could have ridden in on a more trained donkey or possibly a fine horse. This colt was literally carrying the Christ, even though it was unbridled and untrained. We also carry the Christ within us, although we may not feel worthy to do so. We carry the Christ as part of our essential nature. We may be fearful, much like a little colt, that we are not up to the task of carrying this Christ nature. After all, we make mistakes, and we do not always respond to outer conditions in the best way. Instead of dwelling on the times we stumble, we remind ourselves of the truth of our being. We keep our thoughts on our power to learn from our experiences without being defined by or tied to the past. We release fears and doubts without giving them power any longer. We are to see the splendor in our worth and the truth of our being just as we are. This is the journey of Lent. And so today, Palm Sunday, let us celebrate our worth, our Christ nature, and all that we bring to the world. And so it is. Amen.
And now it's time for some music. So please stand, and we're going to sing our first song of the day, I Sing with Joy.
I sing with joy, now I can see. I'm here to love, I'm here to be happy and free all my life long. I'm here to sing my song. Now I remember, it seems familiar. Could I forget for so long? I can remember the words and the music. Love is the name of the song. I sing with joy, now I can see. I'm here to love, I'm here to be happy and free all my life long. I'm here to sing my song. I see the light now, everything's right now. Life is a wonderful thing. Beauty around me and love that astounds me. Love is the song I sing. I sing with joy, now I can see. I'm here to love, I'm here to be happy and free all my life long. I'm here to sing my song.
Let's do that again.
I sing with joy, now I can see. I'm here to love, I'm here to be happy and free all my life long. I'm here to sing my song. I'm here to sing my song. I'm here to sing my song.
Thank you.
So I'd like to let our online audience know that we are so glad they are here. And if we wave at that camera right over there on the pillar where the stained glass is, they'll know that we're really, really glad they're here. So hello, everyone, and welcome. everyone. I have often wondered about the word wholeness and even holiness. And what does it mean? Have you? So I looked the word up in the dictionary, and I found the word complete. So yes, I like that. Because I don't need to be born with all my fingers and toes, do I? To be complete. Complete in God. And a few people mentioned that, and that it's a growing, and that it's staying in the now and understanding not to get pulled away into the judgments of what completeness looks like, of what nothing missing looks like. And the more we identify with our divinity, the freer we are. You know? The more we can connect with that allness, the freer we are to implement that attitude into every part of our mind, body, and spirit. So Reverend Joy Weiler is a unity minister who invites us to take another look at how we see wholeness and how we define it. Because why we say that is because a lot of times we look at wholeness with perfectionistic thinking. A lot of times in the collective consciousness, there's an idea that if things don't look the same as somebody else, and we start comparing, that person's not whole, or that is a deformity or a defect. We compare, and then we get off track. And this happens in the unity teachings as well. Sometimes we've gotten off track. So Reverend Joy Weiler, she was born with a rare form of dwarfism. Her parents were ushered into a meeting, and they were informed that their baby daughter would not survive. And the advice they gave her parents in the 50s was, don't get too attached to the baby, not too much contact. And Mr. Weiler, her dad, he really expressed his belief in radical wholeness by demanding another way. By collecting his daughter from the back of the nursery and bringing her home to love and cherish for all the days that she would survive. And in her words, she says, I survived quite nicely. You know? And she's a unity minister now. Yes. So when Joy was giving birth in the 80s, she found the same kind of attitude being carried by the medical staff that her family had encountered in the 50s. An attitude of, if a person is deformed, imperfect, according to our definitions, then she or he isn't acceptable. That person isn't whole, and it will not thrive. Joy Weiler, in her studies, becoming a unity minister, found the same false idea being taught within the curriculum. She took issue with Butterworth when he says, in every case of physical difficulties or deformity, this is a partial expression of the expression of wholeness, of the allness. So the full quote that Butterworth says is, you may not see yourself in relationship to the allness, the wholeness, yet you are whether you know it or not. You will experience the degree to which you know it. So if you see yourself in part, then you have a partial experience. Even in the midst of that partial experience, which may be in terms of not enough money, not a good job, poor relationships, physical difficulties, or deformity, in every case, and this is where Joy takes issue with. In every case, this is a partial expression of the wholeness, of the allness. And so, this is where Joy says the ability of New Thought writers to embrace an evolving diversity, an evolving picture of diversity in our humanity, and yet cling to a single image of manifesting wholeness as able-bodied baffles me. We must put greater emphasis on how individuals see themselves rather than convince them their expression of physical wholeness is limited based on our judgment and our perception of their physical expression. So I love the Karen Drucker song, "When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change." Have you heard that song? It's a good one, eh? How many people have heard, "When we change the things we look at, the things we look at change"? Look it up if you haven't heard that. It's a good one to boogie to. She's got the doo-wop of the 60s girl group going. So when I think of all the challenges that the perfection of life faces, whether it's a flower pushing up through a crack in the sidewalk against all odds, when we consider that beauty, aren't we really awed when we see that? We're always pointing, look at that flower, like through the crack. And yet if we compare it to the rose in the garden or to the daisy in the garden, that one might be stronger, have more leaves, the petals might be fuller. Yet that's the habit that we need to drop, isn't it? You were saying, Susan, like we can't compare and we can't get into judgment, and that's where we get off the tracks. Seeing a limited definition of what being perfect in God means. Once we see ourselves as complete, worthy of belonging, as is, right now, then we can begin to repair relationships, create new, healthier relationships, find work that satisfies our souls, and keep our bodies healthy. There's a thought in the collective consciousness about old age. It's a really heavy thought about, once you get old, you start deteriorating, and our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, really decided to take a stand against that thought of deterioration. And so he promised himself that he looked at himself in the mirror and he promised himself he wouldn't buy into that thought. And he really went to headquarters with that prayer, and headquarters for him was checking in with his God self. And he made a promise to himself, as we all, need to consider promising ourselves to let go of that collective consciousness. And he said, the gray hair in his head started like slowing down a little bit, and there was a new spring in his step. But it's not so much about the appearance of gray hair or not. That's not it at all. What it is allowing ourselves to be as free as we ever were. For example, when I buy into an idea that if I'm getting old and my shoulder hurts, well, that's just old age. I could buy into that, right? And think that I guess that's just what happens. That's what everybody says, or that's what I hear. And because I connect with my wholeness and I decide, you know what, I'm going to see it through and keep working to find something that's going to help me, I eventually didn't even occur to me to think of physio, But I go to my chiropractor, I go to massage, I go try this and that, and when none of it worked for me, I had to hold that. Is it old age? I had to hold these thoughts in my collective, in my consciousness. And so anyways, my doctor referred me to a physio, and I'm healed. So it's like, I'm glad that I'm free. I have these free messages that I am connected with Christ, that I don't have to abide by an old false message. I am free to live a life as whole as I wish. And so I share that story for you, that the same is true for each of us. And to never buy into that, my invitation for you is to never to buy into judgment about our bodies and about our mental faculties and any limitation. And that's what Myrtle Fillmore did when she sat down and she talked to her body. Myrtle Fillmore is our co-founder of Unity, and her and Charles were husband and wife. And she sat down and talked to her body and said, I want you to forgive me for all the thoughts that I ever had about you that called you sick. Dear body, I'm sorry. That said that you were just doomed to live this sickness and die to this sickness. And she asked for forgiveness. And I think and she healed herself over 2 years of forgiving her body and letting it forgive her, and letting Jesus be a part of her healing process, and using affirmative prayer, and letting go of the false ideas that she had. So she and Charles, they're great role models for us to follow, to sit down and take these messages seriously, to do what we have to do, what is ours to do, to express the allness without judgment, right? Letting go of the judgment and moving on into acceptance. Brene Brown has a great affirmation. I am worthy of love and belonging right now, right this minute, as is. And I think that's a good one for us to take into our everyday thinking when we get off track. So Reverend Joy says the 9th chapter of John contains a lengthy story of a man born blind. It opens with the disciples pondering the karmic debt related to the man's physical limit. Was it the man's fault or the parent's fault? The response Jesus gives is a clear foundation for understanding every challenging circumstance we find ourselves in. Jesus says, neither did this man sin nor his parents. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. And this is what I'm getting at, that, revealing God, developing our God muscles, identifying our Godness is each of us. This is work for each of us. It's not just a special charge for those with disabilities, right? So Charles Fillmore, he expands on this idea of taking responsibility for our overcoming work we need to do when we're expressing our wholeness. He says, by putting the clay upon the blind man's eyes, Jesus illustrated how man makes opaque his understanding by affirming the power of material conditions to hamper and impede his spiritual and material growth. The washing away of the clay by the man himself shows that by our own volition and our own efforts, we must deny away these seeming mountains of environing conditions. Today, the word deny has taken on a different meaning than the one Charles meant. Today, a better word would simply be to release the grip that victim thinking and fear can have on our mind when seeing the obstacles we are called to overcome. Spirit calls our wholeness into action. So, what do you do to align yourself with your sense of wholeness? To remind yourself of who you are? Is it a walk or a meditation? I know that when I sit in meditation, I walk away feeling that sense of connection, of wholeness. When I dance and I start moving my body, again, that body, mind, spirit that Cheryl mentioned, there's that sense of wholeness, isn't there? We're reminded. And it's important to constantly remind ourselves of our wholeness. Jesus often reminded the people he healed to stand up, take up your mat, and walk. Again, he's reminding them of their ability to heal themselves of a consciousness harboring error thoughts. And these thoughts can include judging our situation, feeling overwhelmed, worrying about what others think, and just whatever it is for you. You might want to bring to mind now the obstacles that you're facing, or choose something that you're facing that's a tough one. And, deciding to work with it, you can heal it. So when we take action, even just to go for that walk, or do what it is that reminds us of our wholeness, we find our power once again. We realize error thoughts have no power over us, and indeed, we create our wholesome reality with these powerful reminders of our wholeness. So yes, this being Palm Sunday, a day we can celebrate our true nature, our Christ consciousness. I really like what you said, Judy, your message that you shared, that Joy wrote, Reverend Joy, about the little colt, the metaphor of the little colt who's untried and might be impulsive or perhaps fearful. And, even coming here, I was like psyching myself up for this talk because the glory of God is shining in me as I share words with you. And when I'm walking up here to the church, getting ready for this, my humanity is saying, I'm nervous. So it's like we carry both, don't we? We are earthen vessels carrying this divine light. And it's really important to not abandon that little colt within us. Nurture it, take care of it. Let the divinity in us be the guiding light. Let us be led. Let us be led into a higher consciousness.
So if we all could stand now, and we're going to finish with our love offering, our peace song, and the prayer for protection. Divine love in me and through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all we are. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is.